Thank you so much for sitting down with me, by the way. For anyone that does not know, your name is Dr. Barry Simmons. Is that correct?
Right.
Yeah. You are the coolest dentist I've ever seen. And I was just like, I have to get this guy down and talk to him. How old are you?
Old enough to know better, yeah.
What year were you born in?
Old enough to know.
Okay. I'll leave it as that.
Yeah.
I'll leave it as that.
Yeah.
I remember when we talked recently, you were telling me about the lawnmower story with your dad, how you're like, oh, I can fix this lawnmower, like if I had time, like if I could put my hands on it. What was your childhood like?
Well, I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a very protective family, a father that worked 3 jobs. And whenever something needed to be fixed, I always wanted to get involved with it. But he would always say, no, it's okay, I'll do it. And the reason was he didn't want to waste money with me making mistakes. So that was the reason, yeah. So I grew up in Atlanta early on when Atlanta was 250,000 people. One of those stories was that as a child, at Easter time, I got a chick, Easter chick. They used to sell chicks in the grocery store for Easter.
Like a whole chicken?
A chick, a baby chick that was colored.
But that was alive.
That was alive.
Whoa.
And so a number of my neighbors, their children got these chicks. And so I really loved birds. I always enjoyed seeing them, touching them, looking at them. When Easter was over and the chicks started growing, the neighbor's parents, my buddy's parents, wanted to get rid of those chicks. 6 chicks that was given to me by the other guys grew up to be 112 chickens.
In your backyard?
In my backyard.
Wow.
And the neighbors hated it because it smelled bad. So the bottom line was that was my first experience with birds that we'll get into later in the talk together. But mainly, that's what started me off on the enjoyment of seeing birds.
So that was a small part of your childhood. How did you go from taking care of so many birds in that small part of Atlanta to serving in the Army overseas?
Certainly couldn't draft me when I was 8 years old. That we moved to Athens, and I knew that I wanted to be in medicine. I wanted to be originally a plastic surgeon. That was my dream. To Emory, to college. And my parents did not want me going to Georgia because in those days, it was a party school, a big party school.
Oh, UGA.
They wanted me to...
Believe it or not, nothing has changed.
They wanted me to move on from Athens. But when I got to Emory and I was surrounded by students from Georgia's and South's best schools, my grades seemed to be around B, and I knew I couldn't get into dental school, really plastic surgery, with a B average. That I made a C in the second course of organic chemistry. And it was catastrophic for me because I thought, there goes my entire future. What am I going to do? Yeah. So I figured I would teach Emory a lesson, so I joined the Army. And I was quite young. I found myself at Fort Jackson as an enlistee. Yeah. And I learned valuable lessons when the Army. I hated the Army. Yeah. But it was the best thing I ever did.
What is one of the valuable lessons that you learned in the Army?
That it's not bad to scrub floors and wash windows, or to clean out toilets, or to hang your clothes in a certain fashion, and to roll your socks in a certain fashion. So your life was more regulated at that time. And I saw other soldiers that were in my group. They would drink, pretty heavy drinkers, and they would party. And I realized that's not for me. I figured the reason I joined was teaching Emory a lesson.
Yeah, you were like, the school stuff is over.
In the Army, I joined in order to be part of a dental laboratory training period. They give you 6 months of training to be a dental laboratory technician.
Gotcha.
So they sent me to Fort Sam Houston in Texas, and I loved it. I loved San Antonio. It was a great city, and I was learning and doing what I really wanted to do when I was to work with my hands.
Yes.
So,
which you've always liked since being a child.
It all fell right in line. Yeah. I studied really hard and came out second in my class. And so I chose Fort Mac in Atlanta, Fort McPherson.
Yeah, yeah.
And I worked in the dental laboratory there for 2.5 years. And I learned all the basic of how to make crowns and dentures and bridges and all of those basic things of dentistry.
Yes. One thing that we connected on a lot was Bangladesh. My father was born in Bangladesh. You served in Bangladesh. And helped
Yeah,
out
that's
there.
coming. Yeah, that's
Oh,
gonna,
okay, okay.
that's a little bit farther on down the line.
Gotcha.
But I finished the Army and came back to Athens and did not know what I was going to do. I knew I had to go back to school. One advantage of the Army is that they pay for your schooling and your books.
Yeah.
And so I took courses, everything that I made a B in, I took over at Georgia State, and I made straight A's because nothing was more important than getting into dental school.
Okay.
So I got back to Athens and did not know what I was going to do. And then I decided I'm going to go to Savannah for a break because I hadn't done anything but work for 3 years.
Okay.
So the decision was, after going down there, I cleaned rooms for tenants, people the tourists that were coming to Savannah.
Okay.
And my job was to clean the rooms. And what I got in return was a free place to sleep and food. So after a summer there, I came back to Athens, and my mother said, "Where have you been?" And I said, "I've been in Savannah trying to get caught up with life." And so she said to me, "You were called by Emory Dental School, that you've been accepted to Emory Dental School."
Mm.
And so there was 3 weeks, 4 weeks behind everybody else in the class. And so you learn then to program your time to study so that you can get, so it's all work.
Yeah.
I wish I could tell you it was work and play, but for me
It's all work.
all work. It was nothing else mattered.
Mm.
So I went through dental school. I'll hurry us through this discussion, so I don't want to bore you with these stories.
This is like all the foundation to understand a little
Right.
bit. Do you actually, I wanted to elaborate, you said that you came in like 4 weeks behind, right? Or 3 weeks at the
Correct.
time. I know a lot of people struggle with school and with work and feeling very overwhelmed. Do you have any advice for people that are younger in school and stuff like that? Or anyone that's in a difficult session of learning in their life for tools to help go through those periods and be successful?
Yeah, it's just not to be contaminated by others who want to play.
Mm.
Set a goal. No matter what you do, nothing should matter except study and trying to get your grades good.
Or just achieve whatever you're shooting for.
Well, you work at that.
Yeah.
You constantly work at that. So then at that point, that was then the beginning of 4 years of dental school.
Yes, sir.
And so you learn, one, how to better study. And then I graduated dental school.
Yeah.
And after that, came back to Athens.
Yeah. After dental school in Atlanta.
After dental school. And Army taught me that life can be tough if you play too much. That's really the key, is that you have to be able to cut it off if you want a certain career.
If you want a certain objective, you need to, there's this really wonderful idea. I believe Steve Jobs talked about it. It's about noise versus focus. So the objective is the focus, you want to achieve this one thing. So you have to identify everything else around you that's noise and cut that out.
You have to tune it out. You have to really put on your blinders. But one of the things I did was save my leave time. You were granted so much leave time.
In the Army.
In the Army.
Yes, sir.
And I took a trip on a MATS flight from New Jersey, from there to Spain. And you would get free flights if you were in the Army.
Really? You got free?
On a standby basis. So I traveled all the way through Europe on military flights between countries. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, a regular civilian trains and planes around Europe. And I love traveling. I just absolutely love seeing people from different countries and languages and customs and foodstuffs and so forth.
What is a lesson that you learned that's very valuable for people who have never traveled?
Don't miss a train, right?
We're not very good with public transport
Don't miss the train.
in Georgia.
If the schedule says 11 o'clock, be there at 11, 5 minutes to 11,
Yeah.
so you don't miss the train. One of the valuable lessons is that you see people of all works of life. You talk to them, you meet them in cafes, you find out why they went to Paris. So anyway, the bottom line is after the trip, that's when I went to Savannah, and then the rest of the story is I got out. And I got out of dental school. After dental school, I came back here to Athens, Georgia, because I had nowhere else to go. I was here about a year, and I was lucky if I had one patient a day. If I was lucky. I never forgot those chicks, those birds. I had heard that there was a zoo in Tarpon Springs, Florida, that brought in birds from Colombia. I went down to visit her. I figured I have no work to do here, so I took off and went down to Tarpon Springs, Florida. And so the owner of that zoo, a female, said that her partner lived in the jungle in the Amazon in the southern tip, Leticia of Colombia. And he flew in on a regular basis with animals that they shipped around the world. And of course, this was my thing because I love animals, love birds.
Ever since a kid, yeah.
Yeah. And my chicks. I always remember those chicks.
You really?
So while I was there, I met a Catholic Monsignor, who's a priest. And he asked me, when he found out I was introduced by the fellow that flew the animals back and forth, because I finally went down there to Leticia following that introduction. And so he asked me would I be willing to pull some of the teeth of the local Indians. And of course, my experience was really limited from school, but this was a golden opportunity for me.
Yeah, from having like barely one patient a day to
Correct.
actually somebody looking.
And now you've got 30 people a day, 50 people a day, all waiting for services rendered. So, because there were no other dentists in that part of the world that I knew of.
At the time, for sure.
And so the dentistry there, which was really nothing more than pulling teeth, but the locals chewed coca leaves. And of course, that's what gave them the anesthesia that they didn't need injections of Novocaine at that time. So that was about 2 to 3 weeks, and I had a wonderful experience. So I came back here to my 1 or 2 patients a day, if I was lucky. And mostly they were all people brought in from the local jail. So I realized that now I really love traveling. So that European experience was one. The introduction to different cultures is 2. And more important, it was you're totally learning in the field. So in the field of dentistry, you're seeing different diseases and infections and cancers that you would never see in a general dental office in Athens, Georgia. So I knew that this is it. I really loved it. So I came back to Athens for the rest of the year and looked forward to my next trip. And the next time I went was back to Colombia, this time in the desert of Colombia. And I brought back a macaw. It's a long-tailed, beautiful, red, blue, yellow parrot. I love birds. And one by one, I started building my bird room upstairs. So,
yes. By the way, for since obviously nobody knows Mr. Simmons, like, you know, I've been here. I remember the first time I came into your office, I walked in and I heard one of your birds scream very loudly, and I was very confused. I was like, am I in the right place?
Yeah,
it's really cool.
Very much. So every country then that I worked in after that, if they had parrots, the missionaries that I would go to work under, I would ask them, when they said, can we get you a going away present? I would say, I'd like to have a parrot.
You would work under missionaries when you traveled?
So I would select a country that I wanted to work in.
Okay.
Based on the poverty of the country.
You did it based on poverty?
I would find out 4 different denominations, religions, who had hospitals in the country. And I would work, I had 3 months, and I would divide up my time between those 4 hospitals.
Really?
Working and teaching nurses how to do basic dentistry.
Yeah.
And to do extractions of teeth. But mainly to teach in the local schools of the area. Hygiene,
Yeah.
so that their teeth would not be troublesome as they got to be adults. So that was the whole idea, was to create dental clinics in each of these countries, so that when I came back to Athens, I would enlist other retired dentists or senior dental students that wanted an experience of working in a developing country.
Yeah.
To do dentistry, but yet to live the culture. So we're going to get now to my experience in Bangladesh. Knew that Bangladesh is one of the poorest places in the world.
Easily, it has to be.
At that time, Bangladesh was 80 million people, all crammed into a little small landmass. So I packed up my equipment, and Air India flew me to Mumbai now, and I had everything packaged, only to find out that West Pakistan and East Pakistan were at war. East Pakistan became Bangladesh.
Yes.
And so the airport that I finally ended up was in Calcutta, waiting to catch the next flight, only to find out that West Pakistan had bombed the runways in Dhaka in Bangladesh. And so my problem was, now what do? I'm sitting in the airport, it's 5 o'clock in the morning, what do? Well, I found out that there was a flight that was going to Bangladesh with the Mother Teresa Sisters. Have you ever heard of that? It's a Catholic, Mother Teresa was the head of this group. And so I went to them and I asked them, is there any chance I could go on your flight into Dhaka? And she said, I don't see a problem. Anyway, they loaded my equipment on. I flew into Dhaka. The door opens and the heat was unbelievable. The humidity and the heat of Bangladesh is, you never forget it. And then I had to figure out, how am I going to get my equipment from Dhaka down to Bola Island? It's a island in the southern part of Bangladesh, on the Bay of Bengal. It turns out there were very few, if any, Americans in the country, because the United States supported West Pakistan and the Russians supported East Pakistan.
Which is where you're at right now.
So I had to figure out, how am I going to get my equipment down south? So I'm at the airport, and I found out that the Russians had a freight helicopter, which is right there in those pictures. I went to their delegation that were in the International Hotel and knocked on the door, and I told them who I was. And I asked, do you speak English? And they said, yeah, Ada, whatever. And so I said, is there any chance I could talk with the pilot? And they went in another room, and they brought the pilot, and he was about 5'6", and a little small guy that was unbelievable as far as, but he had a big head, and it almost looked like a Martian caricature of what you think of people who live in Mars look like. Yeah. So I asked him, can you help me get on the flight to Bull Island? Well, it turns out that there was a tsunami. So they had a tsunami there just prior to me getting there, and it killed 250,000 people on this island. So I figured everything I'm going to see there is going to be washed away and so forth. So this tsunami came in the middle of the night and caught everybody asleep, and that's what caught so many people off guard.
Yeah.
One of the interesting parts of this job, if you call it that, is trying to figure out problems on how do I get from Dhaka to Bola?
Especially in times of like war and conflict.
Even then, you have to think smart because things go wrong at the very last minute.
You know, this is amazing how you're able to get to these places. Do you have any advice to people on finding solutions in troublesome times? You said you were like at 5 a.m., you don't really know what to do. You try to get one place to one place. You have a goal, but especially when you're in these international countries and stuff.
Well, I would tell you that if you go to any place unknown, really unknown, and underdeveloped, you got to remember you're not walking into New York City. And so you have to remember you're on your own as far as how to figure out logically how to get from point A to point B. But before the trip, I would always make these arrangements with the missionaries that were there. Well, turns out Bangladesh has no missionary.
I guess my grandfather wasn't in the country back then.
Yeah. So my contact in Bangladesh was Save the Children. And Save the Children had a project on Bull Island. So what you want to do is, answer your question is, you want to make arrangements before you go to a place. There's a television news system called Viz News. Video was for me to have all these toothbrushes that I had collected around Athens, Georgia, I'm giving them out. The guy that was running the broadcast said, okay, go. And the children were let go. And they ran toward me, and there must have been a couple hundred children. And they jumped on top of me to get the toothbrushes, which I hadn't planned on. So I was trying to give them out, and I kept pushing them away. And I'm trying to say, that's not going to look good on that Viz News.
Yeah, you're like batting kids away. Yeah.
So it turns out that the whole summer that I was there, I had never seen poverty like Bangladesh. As an example, and you'd be in the Dhaka in the city, and there would be people begging for food on the streets, and you would find them pulling at your clothes as you walk down the street. And it's intimidating because you've never had. Bangladesh is not like that anymore. I'm sure that it's changed. What I found was that the Bangladeshis have exceptionally good teeth. It's unusual. You saw problems with gums because they never had their teeth cleaned and so forth. But for the most part, they had excellent teeth. I learned to eat with my fingers. That was something I had never done.
I believe it's like you sit on your left hand and then you only eat with your right hand or something like that. I don't know if that's...
Yeah, and that's correct. And you use these 3 fingers to pick up your food and eat. And flies were everywhere.
That's a crazy culture shock.
So consequently, what happens is that you have to brush away the flies in order to pick up your food. See? And so you have always in the back of your head, you don't want to catch a disease. So one of the issues about working in a developing country is catching a local disease. So the Bangladesh trip was an experience that I remember.
Has there ever been a time when you were trying to solve these problems where you got in over your head? Did you ever feel helpless?
Bangladesh was one of those places.
What did you do about it?
As an example, my host was a grossly overweight male was notorious for fooling around with girls 12, 13, 14 years of age. And I didn't want to be characterized by his demeanor, what he's done. And one day we were riding in his Jeep back from a project, and he hit a baby lamb. Now, a lamb to a family that's ultra poor, I mean, it's very valuable. Only he didn't stop the Jeep. And the people were yelling at him to stop, and he didn't do it. Things can happen. You got to be prepared for things that happen like that. You have no protection. Whereas when I worked with missionaries in Africa, for example, you always had people looking out over your shoulder to make sure things don't go wrong.
Yeah, you're seeing these kids with rotten teeth and just jumping on you for toothbrushes, people grabbing at you while you walk down the streets. I can't imagine what that's like.
I don't know if that's true in today's Bangladesh.
No, I sure it's probably not, but this is something that's, there is homelessness in America though, but it's not to this extent.
Nothing like you'd imagine.
Yeah.
I would say to you, we make any point on this discussion today is every American should be transported to a country that's very, very poor, and you realize how the legal system doesn't work and how we fault our politicians and we think they're bad, but you cannot imagine what it's really like in a developing country.
Yeah.
So I would say, even though it's changed for the better after all these years since I was there, there is nothing like a developing country to awaken a have-it-all America. You need to be there, see it, touch it, feel it. In each of these countries, for example, on an equal basis as Rwanda was one of the countries I went to, and that was a very humbling experience.
Why was it humbling?
Poorest to the poor, just like Bangladesh at that time.
Yeah. What what children in a third world country want and what children in a first world country want are vastly different. Have you ever seen this viral video online where it's a bunch of kids in America and they're like, I want to be a content creator, I want to be a football player, I want to be this, and then they go into Israel and the Israel-Palestinian war and they interview those kids and they're like, I want to see my brother, I want to eat dinner with my family again, like I want to have a bed to sleep on.
Yeah, and when you see that, you learn, so that's what it's like there.
Yeah.
See? So in Rwanda, my experience there was fascinating. There was a lake called Lake Kivu, and the lake was filled with an area of people with long bone fractures. A lot of people had broken arms, broken legs, and nobody knew what the heck was causing the problem. And of course, I was fascinated. Why do so many people come into the dental unit, come in with a broken arm, broken leg? And it turns out that Lake Kivu had fluoride of 17 parts per million. The top dose that you can have, according to the American Dental Association, is 0.8 parts per million. It turns out that high levels of fluoride can cause long bone fracture. And when I read that, I thought, holy crap. Wow. On Lake Kivu is the country's biggest brewery. So the brewery gets their water for their beer out of Lake Kivu. So all around that whole area where people bought beer, long bone fractures. And of course, I did a project with the Alabama School of Dentistry. And what we did was show the government of Rwanda, this is a real issue that you need to deal with. So the United Nations was brought in to drill deep well that did not have fluoride. So you feel like you've done something that bettered people's lives. And it makes you feel better that you contributed something to, quote, without sounding corny, a better world. I remember seeing a woman drive through town in a Land Rover, and she would blow the horn and she'd wave. And I can't remember the woman's name, but she did a research and study on gorillas. Very famous woman. She had her base of operation. So that's another one of those holy cow experiences. And anyway, they ended up killing her. So they murdered her. I wish I could tell you. It's like Jane Goodall was with chimpanzees. This woman was with gorillas. She's very famous.
I want to ask you more like your thought process, maybe like a philosophical questions, if that's okay.
Depending on how philosophical.
Yeah. A lot of people in my generation have something called like a happiness epidemic. Happiness is a lot harder for us to have these days. You have mental health is on the rise, anxiety, depression, suicide rates, all of those things. As someone that has seen so much suffering in the world, do you have thoughts for people that are struggling to find happiness in times like this?
The word is being proactive. It's knowing that your current lifestyle and trends of thinking, in order to improve, then you have to be proactive and go to places where life is on the other side of the yin-yang. One of the whole issues of being stuck in a depression status quo is recognize the issue and do something about it. Don't just sit there and complain to yourself about how bad you have it. In other words, if you know it needs improving, then be proactive. Now, keep in mind that I did not have any money in those days.
Yeah.
So I always looked for, so that's what I'm seeing in that particular issue, but it's being proactive to want to improve what you have and what your thinking is.
What do you think a lot of people focus on in life that leads them astray?
Define what you mean by astray.
Well, I currently work in oncology right now with a lot of patients, and I see a lot of people that are bed-stricken, death's door. I had a lady speak to me recently saying that she was craving to live, you know?
And when facing death like that, when you're there's nothing more precious than life. Do everything you can to prolong it because life is precious. And of course, at my age, this is one of the issues. At your age, you've got a huge, long journey ahead that you can do anything you want to with it. At my age, I've got a limited time left. When you see that the end is near and you have no way to get out of it, and you always hope that you can have another day and another day. But the reality is sometimes that you have to face it and say, it's the end of the road. Anything you can do to prolong the last minutes and days of your life, you should do it.
The last question I think that we will have is more so, I just want to get off a space. Do you have any words or anything you'd like to share with anyone out there? I don't know if you're a religious guy. Any words that you want God to give someone to hear?
Yeah, go out and see the world. Yeah, it's a phenomenal experience. You will enjoy learning about other cultures. So I would say to anyone who you talk to, go out and see the world. That's the most incredible learning experience of your life.
Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Yeah.
I will see you very soon.